All right, buzz babies, and welcome back to another episode of Blake's Buzz. I wish you all could have been in the room with me and my guests because it has been nothing but a rolling tide of technical difficulties, but it's still going on. We're just not live. And this is going to be such an amazing interview because I have, yet again, I've been getting so lucky, folks, another epic creator with epic stories to tell and epic books for you to run out and buy. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody else, anybody who's listening, any nerd who loves comic books, I've got Patrick Horvath in the house. Oh my goodness.
Hello.
All right, he's just a comic book creator, folks. Calm down. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Patrick.
Hi.
Thank you for not leaving me in the dust.
Oh my goodness, I never would. And thank you so much for having me on board. I really appreciate it.
Oh, so stoked, man. I've been hearing about, I've been it's well, especially today, right? But even before today, I've been hearing whispers of Patrick Horvath in this book at Boom and Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees It, and it's the imagery is so beautiful and so inviting and lovely, and then you find out what it's about, and you're a sick little twisted puppy, sir, and I love it. But yeah, it's amazing. It's selling out everywhere. Like you're like, you've entered that territory where like, this is why you pre-order comics if you want
Right,
this,
yeah.
right? And it's so exciting with all this stuff going on, man. And now you're in the crowdfunding scene. You're here to talk. You're having some very cool stuff going on. So real quick, hi, and
Hey.
and how's it like being Patrick Horvath on May 16th of 2024?
I mean, it's pretty spectacular. I'm not gonna lie. And today was the day we got Eisner nomination for Best New Series, Beneath the Trees. And
would have made a great live show,
Yeah.
like it would have been a great time to go live with the comic book nerds. Yeah, I'm sorry.
But it's been yeah, I mean it's incredible. The best way, I mean, I sort of mentioned this before we were recording, but like the best way to describe it for me is like the whole thing has been really overwhelming, but in the best possible way.
Nice.
I really never anticipated folks being so into this book. I definitely didn't anticipate like an Eisner nomination. Like all of it's just sort of, the imposter syndrome's like sitting in real heavy right now. And I'm just sort of very grateful for, the nice things folks have to say, and I'll ride that wave as long as I can.
Yeah.
But it's great. I mean, it's also totally it's very encouraging, obviously, but I mean, I'm in my mid 40s, and it's been I had a whole nother life just working in movies for like the past 18 years.
Oh wow.
And so to take a hard turn and kind of hope that it worked out is really, it's paying off right now, I guess, in ways that I didn't even imagine. So it's just, yeah, it's been a strange, exciting time, which is wild because like, as we also mentioned, like making comics takes a while. So like, it's strange to have any excitement that's tied to you just sitting at a table for like over a year.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of you sitting at tables. Every panel is so, and I'm going back. I've seen a little bit of Free for All. I got to see like the preview of it, and that's very detailed too. And also like, I very much love seeing how you draw like the emotions on people, and then like,
right on. I appreciate
and then
that.
like
Thank
juxtaposing that with like what you're doing with like the animal world,
you.
right? And it's very cool, and it's so you get eyes like this part of the face, this like very emotive.
Yeah.
I just know what people are feeling, and I don't want to sometimes. Like I don't want to connect with Sam on like any level. I at first I did, but now like, but and I kid because I kind of do, right? Like the sick puppy in me, right, is like, oh my God. But you can just like you can see it's like the cold steel worry kind of on that bare face a lot, and it's just like she's looking at everything and analyzing everything and
Hmm.
ready to do anything, right? And it's just
Hmm.
very wild. And then so yeah, very cool to hop over. And then and of course it makes sense because like why would you be able to make a bear look human but not make a human look human? But like just cool to look at both and how you can just bring these very raw and intense visceral emotions right onto the page. Always super impresses me because sometimes it's hard to do, right? Like not everything is like the big superhero double splash page, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes we're talking, sometimes the character has to evolve, and not only that, like sometimes we have to see it, right? We have to like
Yeah.
see the change in the character, and
Oh yeah,
it's not just a hair
yeah,
dye.
performance is a huge part of what I focus on in drawing. And it's also interesting because I also enjoy animating.
Okay.
And so and to me again performance kind of is a huge part of that as well. So I'm definitely like always concerned with making sure like that the body language is right and that the emotions coming across the face the right way to sort of hit the dialogue that's happening. And it's definitely like a big focus for me for sure. So I'm totally thrilled to hear that it's working for you.
Oh, dude, it so is. It's and you it has to in these kinds of stories, right? Because even
Yeah,
there's so much more in like in Beneath the Trees. There's so much more there than the murdering, than the
right.
serial killer, than the dueling serial killer, even, right? There's the town is an entity, these characters are an
Mhm.
entity, and we have to, great horror, we have to laugh with them and cry with them and feel with them, and we
Yeah.
have to
Yeah,
experience
yeah,
like
yeah.
a range of emotions in order to be unnerved to the extent that you push us in that narrative, right? And so yeah, like
Hmm.
I like the performance, the performative aspect of like the characters and like how that's like an action that you create. I've never heard it like you'll find out really quick, Patrick. I suck at talking about art. But like I can talk writing. We talk like structure and pace,
Sure, sure, sure.
but like when I talk art, so I'm like, oh, it looks great. Anyway, but yeah, the performative aspect of it, and how does an artist like how do you train that part of your craft? Like, do you do a lot of people watching? Do you like
Oh,
sit in
yeah,
a lot of coffee shops?
I am huge into people watching for
Okay.
sure. But then also, I mean, it also probably dovetails really nicely with my film work too,
Mhm.
and just what I'm looking for in performance as a director,
Okay.
for scenes and like hitting emotional beats and making sure that like, it's sort of coming across the right way. Making sure that performance tracks across the different scenes and that, like you mentioned, you have that evolution of the character throughout. So it's all, yeah, it's funny because in my mind at first I was like, well, I definitely want to try and keep like, filmmaking stuff and comic stuff
Hmm.
separated, right? And then the more I kind of went into it, I was like, well, like if I'm thinking about it, like, well, if I'm directing this as an actor, then I kind of need this from the performance. If I'm looking at this as a production designer, this is how I want
Okay.
the set of this house to sort of be styled, and that a reflection of the characters that live in it, as well as playing into that backstory. And so like all these things are sort of very like in cinematography you're thinking of just kind of how the composition's working out here, what's the colors doing here, and color theory works into all of it, which is it's regular fine arts and also cinematography. And you're also just thinking about focus is like a really big thing. It's funny because like even in writing, like especially screenplays and stuff, focus is such a thing,
Okay.
that like you don't want to get bogged down by the details of the world. Like you just want to focus on the thing.
Yeah.
And what's beautiful about comics is you can literally just we don't even need the world. The world can disappear for that panel. We can just have the thing.
Yeah.
Like there's so many awesome things that are very specific to just comics that are wonderful. Um, and it's yeah, it's a whole like evolving spectrum for me, in terms of like what that tool bag is. But yeah, that's probably, I would say probably the most, like my whole past working in film and directing with actors, like that's probably where I picked up a ton of that.
Okay. I mean, there is a lot of, I mean, even on a small movie, there's a large crew, right? There's a lot of hands and moving parts on a
It
movie
depends. Well,
set.
it depends, man. I mean, I've worked on movies with like four people in the
Oh,
crew,
really?
like three
Wow.
people. Yeah, teeny tiny, but we still got it distributed. And then having stuff with like more like 60-person crew or whatever.
Okay.
It's a little bit of everything. But it has definitely like those the people that even people I haven't worked with, but I know, but I just admire their work. um they are the folks where like I'll put on their hat and be like, all right, so I'm gonna like let's costume design, like what's this wardrobe gonna look like, why this not that,
Mm-hmm.
like all those choices of like how to dress your characters, and then in the world they live in. That's like super interesting to me, like the props that they have, right? Or like what are the the vehicles that they drive, why the vehicles they're driving, you know what I mean? Like
Mm.
all that stuff. Super important to me in building out the world. And it's, I think, probably because of my background in working on crews and stuff that I can't like turn it off as I'm like building that, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So like for this was like very much like putting together the town was like, oh yeah, the town of Woodbrook should probably look. I mean, it was definitely sort of modeled after Richard Scarry's Busy Town.
Okay.
And but the main town itself is Montpelier, Vermont,
Like the
which is
city,
this,
the city part.
yeah, no,
Okay.
just the like little Woodbrook town.
Oh, okay.
The city's more like New York in the 80s.
Okay.
But Woodbrook and like Main Street and stuff like that, that's like all from like photos that I've found of just Montpelier,
Okay.
Vermont. And it's like a really cute, picturesque town
Yeah.
nestled in these trees.
It's like a whole
Um,
town of bed and breakfast. Like that's
yes,
how it feels,
like
right? Everything
basically,
is
yeah.
is cozy to the max.
Yes,
You know,
totally.
like no one's locking their door. Well, they are now. They're locking their doors now, but no one was locking their doors.
No. No, this is totally, yeah. They started locking their doors. And so it was yeah, it's definitely like most of the stuff was like in my mind was built like in the 60s or 50s.
Okay.
Like it's all like kind of around then and then aged up like 20 years would be my idea of like what, because it kind of took I mean it takes place in the 80s basically
Mm.
for whatever, but which is funny to think of when you're talking about an anthropomorphic town,
Yeah.
because you're constantly like, so do they have religion, so I guess they've got like Jesus, but I
They
mean
have security cameras. Like they
who's Jesus? Like, you know what I mean? Like what animal is Jesus?
I didn't even think of
Like
that.
all
That's
that stuff
amazing.
was like so fascinating to me, to find these corollaries. And so
Wow.
it's, yeah, it's like all that stuff is so fun. But yeah, the best way that I know to chew that up is to like, break it down like it's like it's a movie crew.
Okay.
But yeah, but that's just, that's just because it's easy for me.
Hey, whatever makes your life easier and makes the
Yeah.
stories work. Like I'm not judging, and I'm not like keep the train rolling. You said something interesting. I can't remember which green room it was in because there have been several. But you've got a fairly not or wait, just what is 20 months? 20 months is no, okay, so not quite 2 years old. That's like about a
Right.
year and a half. So not you've got a small bean that you have to care for and raise
Yes.
properly now,
We have a
right?
young child.
And then you also recent or well, semi recently, but you decided to this big career shift in
Yeah.
from the movie world to comic book illustration world.
Mhm.
So like what happened there? And also like part of this is, for free for all is you did that like that's a web comic you did,
Right. That
in
was
the
just that
in the
that was a
before times, right?
just a
Like,
DJ. Yeah, it was a digital comic I did. I mean, it was just on PDF.
okay,
And that came out in 2020.
okay,
I was just finishing that up basically as the pandemic hit.
yeah,
Um, but um, but yeah, so yeah, just to give you an idea of like where I was at the time, I've been working on it. So I've been writing and directing stuff. out here in LA since like 2008. And
Okay.
then I've worked on 4 features. One of which was the most recent one was a horror anthology that I wrote and directed a segment for. I co-wrote with my partner Dallas Hallam at the time. And then Dallas and I had also co-directed a movie called Entrance and another movie called The Pact 2, which is a sequel to The Pact. And so you know, I think after Southbound, especially doing like indie horror stuff, like it didn't pay well, um, like at all. So
Yeah.
so like most of that stuff doesn't. I mean, to be honest,
That's a
like
bummer.
if you're lucky, then yeah, maybe something will hit big, and then you've also got a producer share on that, and you'll get a nice cut. If you don't, then you're doing it for somebody else because they bankrolled it and they get the lion's
Mm,
share of the stuff, then that's kind of like what happens.
okay.
Um, the anyway, so after Southbound, it was sort of a well, I kind of just want like a job so I can make money. So I ended up picking up a day job.
Okay.
And then I also at that time like had already been drawing a bunch. Like I kind of picked up drawing again around 2010 after like my second movie project out here in LA. And I would just wanted to I missed drawing and I hadn't really been doing it much at the time. And also I love the idea of being creative in a really short amount of time because movies do take a long time.
Mm,
So you could just like have an idea, draw something, draw it, and be done with it like an hour.
yeah.
It was like that sounds amazing. And so I had been doing that for about 6 years or so, and I was like, you know what? I bet I feel like pretty confident that I could I'd be happy with the art that I can make right now for a comic. Like I think I should really start thinking about putting pitches together. And I did I went out with a pitch with another writer named Ben Cook, and that got a lot of like good responses, but it never found a home anywhere.
Mm,
And then around that, a little after that, I also had thought of the idea for Free for All, and wanted to go ahead and like, try that out. So I scripted it out and slowly drew it over like 2018, 19, and finished it in 2020. And also during that time, started storyboarding on some features, mostly all horror movies, like smaller horror movies. And then randomly was asked by director Dave Bruckner, who's also a friend that I met during Southbound, to go work on doing just designing in-camera special effects for the movie called The Night House. And there's a sort of entity that's in that's kind of invisible, but you can sort of see
That's
it.
the woman, right? Her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Oh, so I designed all those ghosts that show it, like the weird confluence of edges that show up and form the
What?
thing. Yeah. So I went and worked on that for a
You're
couple
way too
months.
cool to be on my show, dude. Who tricked you into doing
It's not true at all.
this?
I'm like the person to be on your show. This is fun. It's fun to talk about it. But and then I also boarded, and I mean, I did some other design concept stuff for he also did the new Hellraiser. And so I
Okay.
worked on that a little bit. And then,
Which I loved.
oh
I
yeah.
will, and you I'm not even lying because you're on, like, you can look up I did a TikTok, I did a few short, like around a few Halloweens ago. I was doing
Uh-huh.
short TikTok reviews, and I was like, I loved it. It's cool, it's stylish and weird, just like the other one
Yeah.
where
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it had that vibe, and that just, I don't know, like if I'm gonna go to hell, I think that's what I want hell to look like. Is that
They had
weird to
really
say?
cool,
Like,
yeah, really cool designs. Like I loved all the Cenobites,
yeah.
including the new Pinhead. And so the the uh oh yeah, so I got to do that. That was fun. Also, and then more storyboarding on horror stuff. And then it was totally random, but a Paul Davidson, who was he was with The Orchard, which had distributed Southbound, and then he ended up at IDW. I think at the time filling in for somebody who was on sabbatical, who was in charge of film TV development.
Okay.
And then so that's why Paul was there. And then he had asked if I'd be interested in pitching a being the artist for a graphic novel he was writing. And that ultimately didn't pan out for us, but he still like, was a major sweetheart. And when IDW started doing the creator owned stuff, um, he uh he put my, Instagram feed in front of the eyes of Mark Doyle, who had come on and then was just kind of like, yeah, I think this guy's art's great. What do you think? And Mark's like, this is awesome. And he's like, also, he's, writer director, so he can write. He can kind of do it both. And then at that point, David's like, you want to talk to Mark? And I was like, yes, I would like to talk to Mark. That sounds great. And so then we had a great conversation. I turned around and pitched him like 4 ideas for stuff that I'd been, accumulating. And Beneath the Trees was one of them. After that, they were like, we would like to see a lot more on Beneath the Trees. And I gave them the whole outline for the what I thought was going to be a graphic novel. Ended up being they were like, we thought this would make great for single issues, so let's do that. And then they gave me room to do an extra issue to make it 6 instead of what was going to be 5.
Okay.
And then that's how we got going. So it was totally random. And so at the time, as you point out, like we also, like my wife and I had a child, and that was kind of all around the start of this.
Wow.
And so
what a journey.
Yeah,
leading right into the pandemic too. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, the pandemic, like we were in the middle of it at that point. Like this is like
okay,
20,
so
this is like 2021, 2022. I started drawing, like we had our child in 2022, and I started drawing in pretty much January of 2023.
Okay.
A little earlier. I definitely had done the cover before. Like I actually sketched out the rough ideas I had for cover number 1 in the delivery room. And then ended up giving those out to our, my editor Maggie and assistant editor Jake, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we love this one. This would be great." And so that's kind of how it all happened. Just funny.
Was it real quick? Was it ever weird, like being a new dad and like drawing what looks like it could be like a story for your child,
right?
But it's not. It's everything terrible about the world masked in cute animals, right? And like, but did that ever? I feel like that could go either way. Like that could kind of like, because your nurseries, right? It's gonna have all these like stuffed animals and cute shit in it, right? And you're like, oh, there that teddy bear might have a knife. I don't, like I don't.
Right.
But also like maybe it was easier, not focusing on the visual humanity of it too, right? To kind of like give you like, oh, like maybe I did bring you into this world and everything will be fine.
Well, I mean, I feel like it was definitely weird.
Okay.
At the same time, she's so young, like it didn't really matter like what she saw. And then in terms of how I computed it all, I was okay with it. It wasn't too strange or anything. But it was kind of, there was me showing her stuff, like not the horrible stuff, but just like throughout the course of drawing stuff, the pages, as we went along. But now it's like she's getting older and she's definitely like computing stuff a lot more sophisticatedly. So I'm probably going to already be a lot more careful about what we show her.
Yeah.
But
if she's like a segmented duck.
I mean, I don't necessarily want her to see that stuff. And then but it's also interesting because she is very much cool with like dark and dramatic stuff.
Nice.
Like she likes monsters already.
Okay.
And she really loves Godzilla. And
right.
so
you got a cool kid. That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
it's totally interesting to see how well she enjoys that stuff. I mean, she also loves Moana, and but she loves the monster from Moana too, like a lot. So it's pretty hilarious. But yeah, I mean, it's the biggest challenge, honestly, was just having a young child to take care of and kind of keep up with your deadlines for the different issues. And it, we made it. We got it done. Lessons have been learned. And we'll take those into a much more hopefully less taxing schedule going forward with anything, whatever the new thing is.
I mean, well, issue 1 came out in October, right?
Yeah.
And the 6th issue dropped to what, 2 weeks ago, a week ago,
Yeah,
or something?
2 weeks ago.
You did
And
it. Like
well,
that
yeah,
train ran on time. Like,
but what's crazy though is that, and this was definitely in our favor, issue one just disappeared because people picked it right up.
mhm.
Wasn't expecting that, but as a result, the issue two got pushed. And then for so that issue one would be out again. So for people to be able
Oh,
to like read one and then buy two. And
okay.
then same thing happened with issue two. And then so when issue two ran out, they pushed three so that people would be able to get one and two to be able to read with three. Like it was definitely like a weird herky jerky, like,
Wow.
kind of funky start to it. And then after that, it was, four, five, and six were pretty much right on time. I think it was basically like one and two really got kind of pushed back, and then four, five, and six were good.
But pushed
But
back for a good reason though, too,
right,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what's that feel like to like all of a sudden like because I've heard like when a book sells out, it can mean several different things. And as like from a creator standpoint, it doesn't always mean you get excited, because it's
Sure.
always sometimes it's like not a necessarily a good thing that it sells out. All right. But like when it sells out and it's getting that second printing, and then they're
Mhm.
delaying you're essentially getting like two launches, two number one premieres, right? Like
Yeah,
as a
definitely.
creator, like that's you're up there on that chair, baby. Like
Yeah,
you're in the clouds.
it was really strange. I didn't even I mean, what was also nuts is that like it continued to like the numbers for the print runs kept going up for like each issue all the way to six.
Okay.
Which is nuts because usually I was fully anticipating it to be just like I'll be very happy if we sell like
Mm-hmm.
12,000 of issue one, and then like after that maybe it'll be like seven or
Mm-hmm.
six, and then maybe it'll be like four. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
that's 100% what I was expecting. And it was the complete opposite.
Hell
Like it
yeah,
just went
dude.
like really nuts at first, and then went through three printings of the first one, and three printings of the second one, and two printings of the third one. And it was just like I didn't quite I'm still not quite wrapping my head around like what all that means. Only that that it was good and
Yeah.
that and that we're on the right track. I was expecting, especially with the comic being like it's weird comic. Like I definitely have a couple issues that are strange ones, and I didn't expect those to land with an audience at all.
I thought
Um,
I thought you were saying like it's a strange comic. I definitely have a couple issues.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
no.
Obviously, I've got problems and I'm working it out on the page, which is why I'm nice in person, but inside my mind, it's just, a roiling ball of snakes. So
Nice. You
but
horror guys always are though. You're always so like bright and cheerful and fun and
yes.
when I started this, when I talked to the first John Lees was one of like the first big
Oh,
comic
right
horror
on.
guys I talked to, right? And I was not prepared for like the jokes and the laughter and the
Sure.
nicest guy ever, right? And I was like, man, I was like, I'm not gonna lie, like I thought talking to you, you would just be like, I wake up in the dark, and it's I
Yeah,
didn't
exactly.
know.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, man, he was like, we get the demons out on the page. He was like, I'm a
Yes.
pretty happy guy.
Yep. It's kind of the truth. Most of the folks that I know in the horror community and movies especially are generally the sweetest people I've ever met.
Nice.
It's pretty true. And I guess it is because we have an avenue to sort of have a weird cathartic place to put stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but it is, yeah, but I mean that said, like I mentioned, that there's definitely a couple of like issue three in particular was just so I was like, this is all gonna be about grief. And
Yeah.
like, I hope that's okay. And so like, and it was. It's weird that people are very much responded to it. And I can't tell you how encouraging that is to
Cool,
just sort
man.
of, basically just lean into whatever it is that like when I got to issue five and I was like, I guess this is gonna be in the second person. I didn't see that coming. And so like I just kind of went with it. And then we just have this crazy cave and everything, and it's just and we got a bear fight and okay. But it all felt weirdly necessary. So I just went with it.
Oh yeah.
It definitely felt like it had to be that way as I was doing it.
I couldn't
Um,
imagine it another way. Like
I
I
know,
couldn't I
yeah.
couldn't imagine it I couldn't imagine it written in a different way. I couldn't imagine like if you wrote it and had someone else illustrate it. I couldn't,
Mhm.
I definitely couldn't be illustrated another way. Like it's no, once you see this, there's,
It felt very like I appreciate that. And it was really enjoyable to be able to do both.
I bet.
And I definitely am open to also doing writing and having somebody else draw. Like I love collaborating. And I am glad that I did get to work with Hassan Otsman
Yeah.
doing the letters because his work is incredible. And he just brings a whole nother dimension to that performance that I was
Mm-hmm.
talking about. And so it's, I do like that. I miss some of that collaboration in terms of, versus movies, just because there are fewer people. But I also really like the amount of control that you have
I was
when you're
about to
making a
say,
comic, man.
yeah.
Because like when you make a movie, there is just so much that can go wrong or different. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
even say wrong necessarily, but different than what you anticipated.
Okay.
And it's really hard to keep your eyes on what's the full expression of what we're doing. Like, what is it that's going to be, like, it's going to fully express what we're aiming for? You know what I mean?
Okay.
And it's super hard to hit that mark in movies, just because it's such a crazy time making a movie. There's just a lot of moving pieces you have to keep track of.
Yeah.
With a comic, it's basically a lot of it was just me sitting down and trying to get it right. And it was just it's so much close. Like what I sat down and was hoping to make as I was writing it is very much like what ended up in those books.
Cool.
So it's uh there's just so much more control that you get,
It seems like,
which I
yeah,
do love.
from what from what it sounds like is because it's not always the case, but it sounds like you had the right editors and the right, the right, people around you that were just like, I don't want to say like got out of your way and let you do what you needed to do, but were like, let you, I mean, essentially that's what they did. They let you did
Well,
what you needed to
yeah,
do.
they were very much tuned into the same wavelength. Like, I think
Okay.
that's why it was one of the reasons I think why they were just so excited about that pitch was that they immediately were like, "Oh yeah, this is going to be great. Like, this will be very like obviously it's hitting those nostalgia notes and everything. It's very cute and adorable. And then it's also like really dark. And
So dark.
when I gave them the pitch, which also included pretty much all 6 issues. I think,
Okay.
and like most of three, but not a ton of it. But definitely everything that happens in one, two, four, five, and six, and especially all the darkest stuff. Like and my pitch was sort of, or the outline I gave them was sort of scatterbrained in the sense that like I would go like microscopic and be like, here's like dialogue bits as they're coming to me right now in this part, and then other parts would be like, and then this happened. It would literally just be like speeding through like moments, just because I was like, we just need those building blocks right there, and
Mm-hmm.
then so it was like a lot of broad strokes and a lot of tiny microscopic detail of like real dark things that I was like, well, this needs to be in here, that just so they understand like where I want to go with it.
Okay.
And Maggie Howells, my lead editor, was very much like on board with all that. All the notes I received were to make it better. Never got notes to dial anything back. It's just
Nice.
all, it was all very much like we were all in the same boat. It was great.
It feels like that's how it feels when you're reading it. It feels like a magical, like a very, it feels like the Bernstein Bears
Hmm.
drawn way better till it isn't, and but
Hmm.
it messed with me because that's what it reminded me of, right? Are these
Hmm.
this like anthropomorphic animal society living in tree houses where like, the biggest problem they have is too much Halloween candy or something, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the simpler times. And so that's how it felt, at first,
Uh-huh.
and then I didn't know a lot about the I knew it was horror, I knew it was creepy, I knew, I don't I know like previews and solicits are important, but I also like sometimes I feel like they give away a little bit too much.
Mhm, mhm.
And a lot of times like I like it when everybody's talking about a book and I look at some art and I'm like, looks cool, hop in and just like everything's new, everything's crazy, right? That's
Mhm,
how this was. But I wanted to tell you this story about Kansas City Planet Comic Con. There's another, so I live in Kansas City
mhm, mhm.
and it's there's another local podcast here, First Issue Club, and they do a first issue, like they go through number one issues and talk about them on their podcast. And every once in a blue moon they'll do an interviewer, or they'll do an interview. And like they did Ed Brubaker the other day, because like
Oh,
Ed
right on. Yeah.
Brubaker's person, like, yeah, duh, we're gonna interview Ed yeah, so like
Yeah.
but anyways, like, so more just comic discussion. But at KC Planet Comic Con, Boulevard Beer sponsors them. So they're at the Boulevard Beer booth and they're doing this tarot card reading. And basically, like, there's a video on my YouTube channel, because they read my tarot, right?
Mhm.
And gave me a, you end it with a, this is the comic book you should read, right? So
Oh,
they
yeah.
asked like genre, and I go into horror, and then they're like, there was like A24 or Bloomhouse maybe or something like that,
Mhm.
and then it was like slasher or and they asked me all these questions, and what it came down to was like, the comic we have for you is Beneath the Trees, where nobody's. And I was like, yeah, people have been talking about this, and they were like, well, good luck finding the first issue, but they're like, I think someone was selling it for $50 at a table over
Oh,
there.
damn it.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, I'm like, well, I'm on the press, I'm like, I'm sure,
Yeah.
like, I can find it from somebody, or did I read a lot of digital books. I'm not,
Sure.
I buy, I mean, you can see I buy a lot of books too, but
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not one of those pure, I like hardcovers, but I like I'm running out of room, man. Like
Yeah.
there's like
Yes.
books
That's an
and
issue.
toys take up a lot of room. And what do we do in this hobby? We grow older and buy more books and more toys. It's silly. But anyway, yeah. So and it was funny. I hit them up because I was like, oh, I'm finally reading the book, because I'm interviewing him. They're like, oh, that's awesome, dude. And but yeah, so that's you were one of the books they were referring. They I don't know how many like end results they had, like how many options and referrals they had, but yeah, you were one of them. And they had these really cool like Boulevard Beer first issue club tarot cards. And
Oh, cool.
at the end they would like write the name of the book that you needed to read and like gave you the card. And
That's super cool.
it was a cool little comic book
That's
deal. I was
really
like, this
cool.
is neat. So yeah, that's how I found out about your book. And then of course, because like the people at Zoop love making your life easier, but also mine, because they hit me up and they're like, we got a cool project, Blake, you want to like do this interview? And I'm like, yeah, let's do a live stream. It'll be a catastrophic failure. But like Jordan reaches out a lot, and we work
Mhm.
together. And so I was super excited. And so with everybody's talking about you, right? Obviously today because of the big announcement, but even before that, like everybody's loving Beneath the Trees. What was when you did Free for All, which is
Mhm.
sci-fi, which is a little bit, it's a little bit, it's a different animal, it's a different
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
genre,
Yeah. Yeah.
a different slice of life, but also weird. Like it's also weird too, right? So it's
Yeah.
like you're that Horvath weirdness.
Yeah.
I like it,
Horvathian.
and I'm
Mhm.
there. It is. I like that. That's got me excited for the future of the Horvathian literature,
That's a
that
good
will be
ring to it.
studied for eons. No,
I don't
but
know about that.
I hope it is. It's but anyway, so what was the reception like when you did that, digitally, solo, no publisher, just like putting it, like, was it, how were you marketing that, how were you releasing it and distributing it, like what was the story of when it originally happened?
It was really casual, and I just put it, there was like almost no fanfare whatsoever. I just put it out, and folks, like some folks, the small circle of people that follow me and like my art, checked it out.
Okay.
And then beyond that, like it didn't really like rattle any cages or anything. It's interesting because and again, like was expecting a similar thing for Beneath the Trees. Like it's funny because like it, it's, I think that I mean, there's something to, um, all the different avenues that we have for putting stuff out there. When you're just like specifically using social media stuff, it's a very different thing than one having like a marketing team behind a publisher who's actually actively like putting it out there
Yeah.
and then putting copies in people's, hands sort of figuratively. So, but
Hmm.
I mean like pushing out like previews for people to read, all that stuff. Versus you just being like, I had this fun thing I did, here it is. Like, and you're like, and then you put it out and whatever.
Okay.
Um, and so it's, and that's kind of what it was like with Free For All. Ultimately, like I made it for me just to have excuse to kind of get this cathartic thing out there that I wanted to do. And then also at the time to just show like a beginning, middle, end as a cartoonist for a
Hmm.
project for people to look at. And also anybody who wanted to work with me just doing interiors for their comic, I could be like, here's some recent interiors that I just did.
So it was almost like
Um,
a portfolio
Almost,
for,
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but there's a story.
Yeah, yeah, I very much am all about, I kind of have a tough time like not including a story with stuff. So like
Okay.
just because I've definitely got that writer sort of brain where I'm constantly trying to put stuff together. So it just made sense for me to kind of make a graphic novella
Wow.
and then use that as an excuse to sort of just kind of, put together a little comic. I was very inspired by Scott McCloud's Destroy. If you're familiar with that,
Yeah.
the idea of just having like a, something maybe close to 50 pages that was just sort of a one shot and was also I loved the fact that Destroy is just such a over the top violent comic that's like, it's just superheroes slugging it out across New York
Hmm.
or Manhattan specifically. And the idea of doing something sort of similar to that was super appealing to me. And at the time, I was also having like this, oh, I don't know, weird malaise that I feel like everybody was going through at the end of 2016. And just feeling really funky about everything and kind of used, for whatever reason, it felt that a lot of the root of Discord kind of had to do with money, and a lot of frustrations born out of maybe scrambling for crumbs while like there was just
Hmm.
ridiculous income inequality that was going along with like billionaires in the world.
Yeah.
And so I was just sort of like kind of put all that together in my head and was like, around 2017, started writing the script for Free For All.
Throw them all in
Um,
a lottery and let them deal with
yeah,
it.
exactly. I was like, you know what? I mean, like if we did, if they just donated half, which they're never going to be able to spend that other half for the
I
rest of their lives
know. I know.
anyway. And then if they could just give that to the rest of the world that helped them honestly built their empire on anyway.
Yeah.
It's not like they made it on their own.
They,
Anyway,
they
so
can't all buy social media platforms. There's not enough of them.
I
Like there's
mean, come on, yeah. You don't got that many social media platforms running around. So yeah, all that stuff was sort of coming together and then that was the main impetus for it. But
okay.
I never really I mean, like, and after people had read it and they were like, so are you going to do a print run? And I was like, I would like to. I'm not in a rush to just pay for that by myself right now.
Yeah.
And the idea of running a Kickstarter just sounded so cumbersome.
Mm.
And it wasn't until Zoop showed up on the scene that I had thought, I mean, I pretty much was like, oh, that's a really cool model. I like that they are essentially handling
Yeah.
most of the worst parts of doing crowdfunding campaigns, but they have like a total strategy for it.
Hmm.
And then on top of that, also the publicity, and marketing. And then, I mean, I would totally be down for doing that, running like a free for all campaign with them at some point. And then I didn't even like, I mean, I was knee deep in Beneath the Trees and issue one had come out finally. And then Eric from Zoop reached out and was like, hey, really like Beneath the Trees. Saw that you've got this other comic, but have you ever printed it? Would you like
Oh
to do a
wow.
campaign with us? And I was like, I actually have been thinking about that. And I was like, it was a lot earlier than I was anticipating. So that's why we're doing it now after Beneath the Trees is finally done. But it was, we just kept touching base throughout the course over the past year.
Cool.
And then it finally, now's the time, let's do it.
Hell
So
yeah.
I'm totally thrilled to actually have like a copy that I can hold in my hand and have around. I was also very excited to have something else to just because a lot of people are interested in whatever else I would like to do, and I have this
Hmm.
whole other book that I've done was just, it's just kind of sitting there. So it'd be a perfect opportunity to also be able to just hand this to them and be like, I also did this.
Yeah. Also, like, I don't know, like, so like I do a lot of like marketing and like PR for like Kickstarter creators, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I help a little bit with like social media and stuff, and we also do a little bit of that at Metal Ninja Studios, is where I work. But anyway, but like, yeah, it's it's that's having help with that is like people tell me that all the time, like, like just having somebody to like email the podcast host, it is like kind of stuff,
Oh,
like
it's huge. I
it's
mean, I
crazy.
have a Rolodex going of friendly people that are in the press
Hmm.
ecosphere, and also the in shops as well.
Nice.
Like any shop that I've made contact with and has actually contacted me back, like they're in the list. Like it's just like it's one of those things where I just had basically zero before. And then on top of that too, like I'm just honestly horrible at doing the actual businessy
Mm,
parts of whatever. I'm great at coming up, like I'm very happy just like rolling my sleeves up and coming up with a whole story about a something and whatever
yeah.
and telling that story. Very much into that. As soon as I get into the actual, like, how would I do this for a living? I don't know. Like, that's like the worst. I'm
Yeah.
horrible at that. And I'm slowly getting
Like, what
better.
branding? No.
Oh my God. Like, it's just very much like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's probably why I'm, where I'm at right now, just kind of like making hard
On Blake's
turns.
buzz, slumming it
Yeah,
up.
no, but just
I'm just
like
kidding.
why I'm happy to take a weird turn with my career like halfway through my
Yeah.
life.
Hey,
The
I'm glad you did though, man. I just can't if this is what we're getting coming out of the gate, and then I know free for all it was done already, but like I also know it's you're tinkering, or there's new lettering and some other stuff, right? It's a
Yeah, well, I'm doing a
remaster.
remaster on it. Basically, I just wanted to. I have a very serviceable pass that I've done with lettering on it. It's fine. It tells the story, and you understand who's talking.
Yeah.
But especially after having gone through this with Haas and like seeing
Yeah.
his work on Beneath the Trees,
You're
it's
like,
like
oh
very,
no, it
dude.
ruined
It's
me
very well. And
forever.
I was looking back over Free for All, and when Eric had asked me if I'd be interested, and I was like, well, let me see how it holds up. I don't really know if I
Hmm.
still like it or not. And looking it over, I was like, oh, this is actually very fun. But I'm noticing like a ton of missed opportunities
Oh.
with the lettering that would just be like not huge. That's kind of the why it's more of a remaster. Like I'm just like I'm not really changing any dialogue, but I am just changing some of the presentation. Uh,
Are you re-lettering it or someone else
yeah,
doing
I
it?
would be.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
I'm
are?
doing it.
Okay.
And then the coloring, I just want to make sure that it's actually legit for the printer to take and
Mm,
print and not mess everything up. So what's nice is that I mean, everything's full resolution for being print ready.
okay.
Which was probably so thank you, Patrick from the past, for doing that and not making my life a nightmare right now.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm happy to say that that it's not going to be like a huge problem. It's just mostly it's going to be like kind of a QC check, tweaking a couple things, and then a lot of it's going to be like fixing, you know, sort of tweaking lettering and sound effects.
Nice. I'm so bad about this because we've been talking for an hour and we've mentioned the book, but we haven't really talked about, we've said it was sci-fi. We've said it was about people and things and it was in the future. But
Mhm.
just real quick, I do this sometimes, Patrick. I do a monster truck rally voice and I read the
Oh
solicit.
yes, please do. I'm ready.
People go wild for it. I don't know. It's silly, I know, but here we go. Welcome to the future. The world is at peace and thriving. Housing, food, education, healthcare. All of the basic requirements for living are now provided by the World Finance League, and it's all funded by a lottery. Wealthy citizens of the world are picked at random and given the choice to either donate half their assets for the greater good of the world or fight to the death and keep it all. Among these trillionaire gladiators, two former lovers square off in this global arena to settle their differences once and for all, regardless of who lives or dies. We all win, baby. That sounds like a pretty
Yeah.
cool book. I don't
That's
know. I'd buy
actually
it.
like, can I hire you just to do these for other books? That was awesome.
Yes.
I
uh,
love that.
but no, I've liked the ideas for lotteries ever since the wee Blakester read that short story that we all read in grade school or high school or whatever we read it, right? But just that notion of like people in power, the random decisions, and like
Hmm.
the deciding factors, and then when you find out like it's all a ruse, or like the Hunger Games, say what you will about it. Another cool the tribute, the premise, the idea of like
Hmm.
sacrifice for the greater good and stuff.
Right,
And
right, right.
when you say that, like, oh, sacrifice for the greater good, that's heroic, that's great, that's real people shit. That we need more of that. Like until it's you, till it's like, oh yeah, hey Blake, sacrifice yourself. No, I got plans tomorrow. I got no. So I've always liked that idea. It's kind of scary. It's kind of terrifying,
Sure.
and I also love it. I was raised Catholic, so I was raised Catholic. So like, I love religious horror. I love like creepy
Mm-hmm.
devil shit. I love possession
Sure.
stuff. But and I was also raised lower middle class, right? And so I
Hmm.
also love like giving it to the man and
Sure.
screw all these billionaires, right? Like I
Yeah.
love it. So yeah, I'm all about putting them through those ringers.
Well, it was funny to me because like the world that this takes place in is kind of like the Star Trek world of the future where it's that post-scarcity world where there's like no like everything's essentially been figured out.
Okay, yeah,
And like everybody understands we actually do have everything we would need to take care of the people on Earth right now. It's just a matter of like, there's a lot of geopolitical things that
hmm,
are in place of like blocking all that. Um, and so the idea is like there's no like to me it was kind of like yes, okay, so here's the thing, you have to like we have to reallocate some of this money because this is
hmm,
just ridiculous, right? But the fact that that like there's another part to this that and again I keep forgetting to look this up. I need to look this up, but I swear there's a quote that I keep paraphrasing that basically is like there's no moral billionaires, and that to actually amass that amount of wealth, you kind of have to,
yeah,
forego
yeah.
like whatever sort of moral trappings a lot of us
Unless you're
have.
Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is perfect. Don't you dare talk about the Queen of Kansas City. No, I'm kidding. But
Um,
that argument keeps getting thrown her way now, right? Because like
oh, right,
they're like, yeah,
sure.
there's no clean billionaire, and people, but Taylor, and they're like, but we don't know, we
Yeah.
don't, like. You know what billions of dollars gets you? Secrets that you can buy and bury, and
Yeah,
no one,
exactly. Yeah.
like anyway.
Yes.
So yeah,
So
I'm
the idea of it being like, oh, well, it would be funny if there were some that were so sort of like, basically psychopaths that were like totally willing to fight to the death for like the like not and it's not like all of it. It's literally just half again that they'll never ever spend the rest of their life. Like there's no way you can spend that amount of money. But they were like, you can't take it from me just out of my weird psychopath principles. So like, and then instead they just fight to the death for everyone's amusement. And obviously not, you know, saying that they, I'm not advocating for people to be killing each other for the betterment of everybody else. Um, just that like this is my very tongue-in-cheek sort of satire of that.
yeah.
It's almost like a, uh, I keep, especially because Roger Corman, rest in peace.
Mhm.
But Death Race 2000 was another like
Yeah.
weirdly influential movie for me when I was young.
Okay.
Randomly caught it on TV, and I was just like, "This is like so bizarre! Like, I can't believe this movie got made. I love it." And the idea of there being like this weirdly accepted, hyper violent, international venue of just like murder.
Hmm.
And somehow that has like helped, create this strange harmonious future.
It's funny how we can't get away from that. It's very much like zombies and vampires, and these like mythical creatures, but the idea
Hmm.
that the gauntlet, the tournament, the gladiator, like, oh, I mean,
Hmm. Hmm.
the gladiator system was real, right? Like that shit happened. There were
Right.
coliseums. It was an art form. They were, and we have like the WWE and
Sure.
and the fighting and boxing and stuff, but it's not the same. They don't give each other swords, and like
Right.
we're
Right. Right.
definitely not watching people murder each other on TV. Like
Right.
maybe one day. Fingers crossed. I'm kidding, but like but we're headed there. Come on, it's but there's it's so funny, or it's not funny. It's I say that when I think of things that are
Oh, I do
culturally
too.
interesting. I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
always
Yeah.
like, it's
Yes.
funny, but it's so like intriguing that we won't get rid of that, and that's
Hmm.
always a narrative we come back to, like this, where it's usually dystopic, right? It's in a future, and things are weird and they've devolved, right? So society
Hmm.
has to, it's funny, we think that like society has to devolve quite a bit for this to happen. It's like, no, like someone just needs to like say it's okay to put it on TV. Like they just
Right.
need to
Right.
like
Right.
pass a law. But it's one of those things that keeps coming back, but it's oftentimes there's the class struggle involved in it, right? But it's oftentimes the have nots that are in the arena that have the
Right.
sword. And then
Right. Right. Right.
that's where the universality and the gumption and the heroism comes from, right? Because they're fighting for something, and then they fight for their freedom, and then fucking Russell
Hmm.
Crowe gets out there, and we're like, yes, but you flipped it. You
Yeah.
you put the rich people in the ring. And I love that. And it's like, I was kind of trying to think, like, I've seen narratives and movies and stuff where we've done weird things to rich people, or rich people have done, usually rich people have done, weird things to themselves, like
Right. Right.
exploring
Right.
the bottom of the ocean in a Pepsi can.
Right.
But like, what, that was so that was so smart. And
Oh, thanks. I appreciate
it
it.
seems like an easy choice, but like that choice to go against the trope is often not easy. But you do that a lot in what I've read from you. Is that, do you sweat over that? Like, are there like a lot of like game planning, or how, I don't know how you lay out stuff or outlines or stuff, but when you're overarching plots or like meta narrative decisions, I mean, like, because some of the stuff you kind of mentioned, like it just kind of happened, like with
Hmm.
Beneath the Trees, and it was just kind of organic, and you were like,
Yeah.
I'm
I
changing the
think,
point of view, or like,
yeah, I feel like I think that's kind of my end point for the story. Maybe the sort of like the whatever those elements are that kind of flip a lot of the tropes.
okay,
And that's kind of like the interesting hook for me that I start like building out the world in. So for me, it was like it'd be funny because I was literally just thinking about like that the sort of ridiculous nature of income inequality in 2016 and even more so now.
mm,
And I was, and the idea that like, man, billionaires just like donated half of their whatever. Like, isn't there? I feel like there was like some push called the 50. It was like the 50/50 club or something like that, where it was like a kind of a push to try and get billionaires to donate half or
I
so.
kind of remember something
There was
about that.
something like that. And so I was I might have that might have also been kicking around my head. But then the pushback to something like that had also been kicking around my head. And I was like, well, it'd be funny if they were given to either like, okay, well, you can do 50 or you can like fight to the death for it. And then to have people like, I bet there would be people that would fight to the death
Be
for it. I was
so
like,
many, yeah, they'd be like,
that's
I'm
so
keeping
ridiculous.
everything.
And I was like, well, it'd be funny if you had like this weird society, like we've been doing this for a while, and now society's actually doing. And the punchline is that everybody's doing great now that that's been happening,
Yeah.
and instead, it's just sort of this weird neo gladiator thing done for the amusement of everybody. And so yeah, so like as soon as I kind of had that angle on it, I was like, oh, this, yes, okay, yeah. And then I came up with a whole love story of there's Ted Brooks and Luella Dominguez, this will be sort of our kind of like narrative that we can sink our teeth into
Mm,
emotionally. And that was like sort of an afterthought because I definitely wanted to have, that was where my brighter brain was kind of like, well, I want something more than just like a first like battle of whatever. And so that's kind of how that grew out of it. Same thing with Beneath the Trees. I had drawn a thing of an anthropomorphic bear with an axe like years ago, like around 2017, I think.
Okay.
And was walking this bear's walking through the woods with this axe, and I was like, well, it'd be kind of funny if they lived in like a Richard Scarry sort of busy town, and they were like a serial killer, and nobody knew they were a serial killer, and wouldn't that be funny? And I was like, it'd be funny is if there was like two, and the other one was like rocking the boat, and then they had to figure out like who amongst the other cute
Yeah.
animals would be the other serial killer, and so that definitely like was the that was when I really started getting interested in it. I mean, that all kind of came together pretty fast. And then as soon as I started putting the outline together, it was, I sort of discovered all the other fun stuff in it. But
Nice.
I'm always very much like happy to lean against conventions that pop up, especially in genre stuff,
Okay.
just because it's more interesting to me. And anytime I can flip expectation, I think is really fun. It's also fun because you just play. I mean, everything's just very well known at this point. You know what I mean? And like, you're
Yeah.
a horror fan. I'm definitely a horror fan. Like, there's just stuff that is just accepted, sort of almost canon of
Mm,
just like horror stuff that's going to
yeah.
happen. You know what I mean? And obviously, like, Scream really set that out in like a canonical way,
Mm-hmm.
in the 90s. And I feel like it's just gotten even more and more, so much the case. So that I love having fun playing with whatever I can.
Nice.
And that, I mean, it definitely like interests me the most.
I can tell that you're having fun. Like that everything, every page I've read, like I said, I only got to read about 12 12 pages or so, I think was the preview. Is I got just a little taste of it, but like I just like it's so intriguing, and I like the art, and the art too is it because it feels like almost like you're like one style to the next. Like they're so wildly different, like
Oh,
color
sure.
palettes,
Yeah.
choices, details, and stuff.
Mhm.
Texture, right? Texture is a big deal in Beneath the Trees, I feel
Hmm.
like. And so I don't know. It's so cool. Like the range that you have like on the page visually, and the range that you have on the page like narratively, like it's kind of not fair to everybody else. Like I hope you know that, like deep down in your soul.
That's really
Um,
sweet of you to say. I appreciate that.
but yeah, man, you're doing some really cool stuff, and I'm glad the campaign is going well. You're funded, and you still got you're halfway through it. You got 15 days left. You're just shy of 5 grand. Real like very affordable books and art options too. I always tell people this, like crowdfunding. If you find artists you like in a crowdfunding campaign, you can probably save a lot of money buying art during that
Sure.
campaign than that
Yeah.
like at a convention or third party seller or on eBay, right? So check, like there's some very cool commission stuff, remarks you can get. Collectors out there, if you are still hunting, I think you still, yeah, you can get a signed Beneath the Trees
Yeah.
#1
We've got
or a
some left. Yeah.
remarked 20 and 60 for those. And then there's the foil too for 40 and 100 for signed and remarks. So yeah, collectors out there, if you're still missing #1, you can get it for a good cause and help a cool book get made. So I really encourage that. I'll make sure like the links and stuff. I had the links in the description for the live show, but that, not to beat a dead horse, but thanks StreamYard. But yeah, I'll make sure like everybody knows the links and like where to find it. Um,
That's much appreciated.
real quick, Patrick, on that
Hmm.
note, I've kept you for a while, I know. Where's the best place to like keep track of you, and do you have like a website or newsletter or anything you want to shout out we can support?
Yeah, definitely. If you go to patrickhorvath.com, it's the best place to keep up with me. I've got social media links on there as well as a Substack newsletter you can go on to and subscribe. It's wild, but I kind of feel like, given the weird diaspora of social media stuff, I'm all about newsletters and
Mm-hmm.
emails right now.
Okay, I love it when you all say that because it makes me feel smart, because I've been telling clients that the age of blogs and newsletters is coming back,
Oh
and
yeah,
that
yeah.
mailing
I
the
mean,
mailing list has always been important, right? But it's even
yes.
more important now. and yeah, when you're running a crowdfunding campaign and you cannot, you can't rely on an algorithm to help you anymore, right?
Even before, when it was just algorithm driven, the like before like when it was still just basically like Twitter and like
Mhm.
Instagram, you were still at the mercy of that thing versus
Yeah.
like that email is always gonna get through,
Yeah.
as long as they're, you got an audience that's looking for it.
And yeah, people choose to sign up for that. Like, even if later they unsubscribe, but initially, like, they're like, oh, that Patrick guy is cool, I like his art, I'm going to sign up for his newsletter, right? They're
Yeah.
like, they're inviting you into their social sphere, right? And a means for you to be like, hey, I got a book on Zoop, hey, I got a kid, hey, I'm doing commissions, and so yeah,
Mhm.
very smart. I've been telling people that, like, because it is reliable, and Substack is cool because it combines the newsletter and the blog um pretty cohesively. It's pretty easy to use. I need to stay more up on it because they keep adding features and stuff, as they should, but I feel like every time I log on, because I don't post to mine as much as I should, because I write articles for Geek Network all day now. That's all I really
Sure, sure,
do. But
sure.
anyway, but like, it's a cool platform. It's treated me well. People like it. A lot of comic creator people like it, and I'm not even talking about just the people who got like the big grants initially to come over and publish comics there. Like, there's a lot of people like it, and there's weirdos on there too. But there's weirdos on YouTube, and there's weirdos on Twitter.
Oh, sure,
Lots of
yeah.
weirdos on Twitter, by the way. Like, there's
Yeah,
but
it's
so,
pretty gross.
unfortunately, you can't get away from it. But it is a kind of easy to use platform, and it goes to people's inboxes, and that is
It's huge.
an important thing.
Yeah, it's huge.
So cool. Well, thanks for making me feel smart, Patrick. I
Yeah,
always
hey,
appreciate that.
anytime. Give me a call, man. I'm happy to do it.
And I'll be here for any future novels, for any monster truck audio that
Hell
you need. Just let me
yes.
know.
Yeah, you expect that.
But yeah, this has been so great, dude. Like, for real, getting to read what you're doing right now, and Beneath the Trees, and I'm so excited for this new campaign, and to see what you do, like, to get the whole free for all story, and to see it, to see it, like, after you do your tinkerings and stuff too. We just did a remastering at work, so it's exciting
Oh, very
to
cool.
see like what you guys do sometime, like, even little changes when you're like, I have so many more years experience since I've done this, and like, a little change can make a big moment. So it's very cool. Zoop is awesome. Patrick, you're awesome.
Oh, I
I really
appreciate
like.
that. Blake, you are awesome.
Thank you, man. And honestly, like, I'm so sorry the live stream didn't work out, but I'm so glad you're having a good day, dude. And that book deserves it. And enjoy the press,
Oh,
enjoy
thank
the
you. I appreciate
praise,
that.
and I hope you get to go to San Diego and party, and whether you win or not, have a good night and have some drinks and meet some people. Like, so
That's honestly my best case scenario. I'm excited to just go and actually meet people.
nice.
Especially after, I mean, what's nuts is I get to go to conventions now that I have, like, I'm done with the book. And I have some time to actually travel. And so
Oh,
you get
cool.
to go and then meet folks that you've been, looking up to for a long time because
Yeah.
they've just been enjoying their work. And so you get to introduce yourself and meet them. It's incredible.
It's cool. It's a magical, very magical experience. And yeah, because I mean, I'm pressed, and people are getting to know me now too. So, like,
Hmm.
it's I'm still not used to it, but it's crazy, like, walking by, and you're like, you're chatting with like Doug Mankey, or like, or Maria Wolf, and I hit it off
Hmm.
pretty good.
Hmm.
And so, like,
Very
anytime, like,
cool.
I walk by her, like, we're always like chatting. It's just like, I'm like the cool kids are talking to me, and the cool kids are making comic book covers at Marvel. Like,
Yeah.
so it's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's super cool.
I'm glad you're getting to and to live it on that side of, like, your baby's out in the world, and well, not your real baby,
Both.
your other baby. Well, yeah, but your book baby is out there,
Yeah.
and everybody's loving it. So yeah, it's a great book, and this Zoop campaign, I really dug these 12 pages for real, and I have a hard time imagining that, like, the 30 sort pages that I haven't read yet, or, like, it's just like, I doubt it's not, you're not gonna just, like, shit the bed out of it. Zoop's not gonna be like, these are the only good 12 pages. We're gonna put these on, like, we're
It
trick
gets way better.
everybody.
Way better. Those are the weakest pages, Blake. Those are the
Nice.
weakest 12 that they showed you. Everything else is like, I was really just getting my sea legs. And then I'm, and now I'm good.
Hell yeah. Well, yeah, go to Zoop. Follow Patrick, subscribe to his Substack and everything. Cause you're going to want to follow this guy. I want to follow this guy. I'm like, if I see his name on a cover, I'm picking it up. I'll tell you that much. So that's, what do I know? I'm just a doctor. But no. But yeah, this has been so great, dude, and I really appreciate it, and like future stuff you got going on, man, or if you're ever just bored, Blake's Buzz, always happy to have you back in the future. Hopefully less technical difficulties next time.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, man.
Hell yeah. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Love more, hate less, read comics. We'll be back later with amazing guests. Follow us, hang out with us at Geek Network, buy all Patrick's books, back the Zoop campaign. I love you. I appreciate you, and we'll talk again.